167 Belleair Country Club members attended the 9 very informative tours last month and learned firsthand our preliminary plans to renovate the golf courses. They were held by Jason Straka and Dana Fry from their world-class architectural firm, which was chosen to plan the work. If you were unable to attend one of the tours, we've produced this short video showing the highlights. Here's Jason Straka.
What's so special about Belleair in itself, besides the Donald Ross history, is the topography that it's on. So this is so uncommon for Florida in general, but particularly for Central to South Florida. And so we wanted anything that we do here as a club should really celebrate the topography. The other thing that's so important about Belleair are the views, and in particular the views of the topography and the views of the bay. And so when we're looking at what Belleair used to be and what it should be right now, is that we want to do on the west course we propose to be more of a restoration, if you will. And so one of the things that when you come here and you stand and we look at this, what you're looking at is a wall of trees, right? So everybody gets all excited about getting out to hole number 5 and hole number 6 and having that view, right? There's no reason that the vast majority of the golf holes on the west course don't have a view of the water, okay? So when you're playing hole number 1 and hole number 2 and hole number 3, you should have views of the water. You can sort of see it a little bit, if you really start to, kind of duck and dive and look. But the goal here in this type of a situation would be to leave the nice, we call them sentinel trees, right? The specimen trees. And so you want to highlight those within the landscape. And you can see that there's some beautiful oaks in throughout this area right here. So we would want to leave those. But the undergrowth and some of the palms and all the things that are really inhibiting the view here, those are the things that we would like to remove. Again, we have this big pond right here, all right? So I don't know how many of you know that this is actually the irrigation pond, all right? This is a reservoir for the West Golf Course. So you have effluent or treated water which comes in from the municipality. It gets dumped in here, right? And this is what gets pumped out to irrigate. Now, this was added in the most recent renovation, okay? This had nothing to do with the original golf course, right, and footprint. Now, I would tell you that it is bad. It is bad beyond belief. I don't know how else. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for anybody. All right, but one of the things here is that you're standing on a tee, and you can go forward to any tee over here, and you're taking perhaps one of the best holes on the West Golf Course, and you notice you can't even see really the landing area. You have no idea where your ball is landing. If you hit your ball over by the creek, for instance, you have no idea if it actually went into the creek or not. If you're playing truly by the rules of golf, you can't just assume you better come back here and tee it up again. How many of you actually do that? I'm guessing not too many, right? Now we talked about the flip-flopping par 5 and par 4. And so, again, you can imagine this green that we're standing on right now moving down right up against the water now. So this becomes a 4. Now, if you look at your plans, the plan would actually be to put a new green out on the peninsula there, okay? So you're somewhat in a location of about sort of the middle to forward tees. If you look really closely at the plans, there's a couple of back tees which would be more out in the middle of the fairway over here, okay? And so if you're trying to have sort of an understanding of what this might look like, that's what this is. If you flip over and you have sort of the before and after images, okay?
Would this hole generally be flattened?
Will be lowered.
Yeah,
will
this
be lowered
There's
down,
your
right?
tees back
So
there.
it's not really as much of a downhill shot.
Well, from back there will.
Okay.
right from
here, not as much.
Okay.
So in case anybody's looking now and wondering what's happening with, what's labeled here as 9, 10, and 12, okay? So those holes get a little bit lengthened. 13 then through 16, all right, are in their same footprint, okay? So nothing changes in terms of shifting or lengthening or, anything like that.
Or creeks.
Well, again, now one of the reasons I also wanted to stop here was that, yes, all the greens would be getting rebuilt, right? And so the idea would be to, again, restore it back to more of its original design. Same thing with all the fairway bunkers, same thing with the playing widths of the fairways. And then also with the grading aspect of it. When I say the grading, one of the things that you probably have never noticed before, but if you would turn around and you would look over here, you'll see that there's these holes, these catch basins, the grates, and they're consistently in the fairways, okay? The issue with that is that, so they're collecting water, right? They're maintained to help control water, but for whatever particular reason, throughout both golf courses, right, it's very pronounced that they put in all those catch basins and the low points in critical play areas. Dana made a good point when we walked up here. He says, you know, it's a good point to talk about the view of the bay from the 18th hole. All right, so here we're standing on the 18th tee. You notice how number 4, how high that is? And then even where the lake would be, the dam behind it. So you'd be standing on all of these tees all the way right here. And especially with some of those, most of those trees thinned out, your view would be absolutely panoramic. All the way from left to right. You'd have a wonderful view of the water standing on the 18th tee. We've talked you know, a little bit about challenges over on the west course, but it's mostly been about opportunity. So for a moment here, you'll forgive me because I'm going to flip the script a little bit. Right, so there are a few things when we're looking at the back end of the clubhouse here. So it's interesting to us that, you know, when a clubhouse was built, if we were to do this from scratch, you know, gosh, you know, we would have been thinking to put the main, you know, sort of main area where people are dining and enjoying themselves. You know, you would think that you would have wanted a really strong water view. You know, for some reason the decision was made to put all of the dining and all of the activity on the back end of it over here. Now, the thing is when we first came here, Dana and I it was complete chaos back here. I mean, I think that was the word that we used. It's very chaotic. And so, you couple that, that's one piece to the puzzle. Now, you couple that with the strong desire to improve your practice facilities, right? So that was one of the things that came out in the survey. Now, I will say that, you know, yes, we heard you loud and clear. And the flip side of it is that for modern day country clubs and golf facilities, this is woefully inadequate for even an 18-hole golf course. So you have all these different types of considerations. So the question became for, you know, for us and then for the committee is, you know, what could be done? What could be done with it? What could be done about it? You know, to improve all of this. And so, you know, after I don't even know how many dozens of plans that we came through, you know, this became, you know, the one that we felt was the best solution, but yielded, you know, everything that you would really want in a practice facility, and yet still have the East Golf Course be an excellent, excellent golf course. The range itself, you know, for quite a few people, even Dana and myself, you know, we're not great golfers. We definitely could hit it out of the back of the range here. We've been with plenty of people that we've driven around the golf course, and, you know, I start to talk with them, and what are you doing out here? You're hitting a lot of golf balls. And you go, well, I can't hit them on the range because I'm hitting it into number 1 and beyond into 17. So that's what they do, is they end up practicing out on the golf course. So with this current, this proposed figure here is that you'll see that it's 300 yards from the front of the new tee now to the front of what is now proposed as a teaching tee, right? So that's another thing too now, right? So you start to think about all the possibilities, right, that could be done with this. So now, rather than being over here with Jim and that being your teaching area, and for one, it sort of looks cluttered right at the back of the range. 2, people tend to be a little bit intimidated. They don't want to be out practicing when everybody is looking at them. You could have a dedicated teaching area that's back there. Again, so what are the things that could be done with it? Well, I mean, we looked at all sorts of different things, but in the end, the solution that we felt was best was actually to reverse this and to play this as number 1. And so the tee shot would go out more or less in line with this fairway. And then your second shot would actually go over the creek, right, to a new green location. Now again, let's talk about celebrating topography. So it grades in very, very well. Would make a wonderful starting hole. Now what it does do is that when we come backwards, you'll notice that the 18th is actually being proposed as a par 3. Now of interest, in the old Donald Ross layout, both 17 and 18 were par 3s. So what we're doing is that we're essentially mimicking what was the old Ross, right, finishing by playing a par 3 18. Now, people always wonder, we'll drive back up and we'll sort of finish the tour that way, but we did do a before and after, okay, image of what that hole might look like. So it'd be a extremely dramatic golf hole. When you come up and you play the second hole right here, you know, the thing that you're overlooking is 5 lanes of traffic and the florist shop and, you know, a bunch of noise and really unsightly. I mean, heck, you hit it one extra club and you're out of bounds and your ball's rolling up, you know, across the road over here. All right, that's not a good experience in itself. You know, that's just one hole there. Other things that, you know, you start to look at, short par 3 like this over here. Any good golfer is not even going to be considering these couple of 3 bunkers over here, right? You're looking at a pitching wedge type of a hole here for most golf, and what's happening is that you're just punishing a poor golfer. All right, that happens a lot on this course. The other thing that happens, it's stylistically with all of the mounds, right? It is a pretty tight golf course to begin with, but again, what ends up happening is you hit yourself on another side of a mound, and you've got all these blind shots, blind views, way too much of, you know, the landscape grass over here. Okay, so I mean, there's no other way to state it. You know, you don't want to sugarcoat it, you know, but the golf experience over here isn't quite what maybe some people think it might be or envision. You know, when we look at the possibilities that are over here, is that yes, you still have some terrain that we could take advantage of, but this should actually, you know, this should be a very fun golf course. You know, it's not going to be nearly as long as a West golf course. You don't have that space. Okay, we can't do that. But for those of you that want more yardage on this plan, this proposed plan, it's actually longer. Okay, if you're playing the quote members tees, you know, for the men that are in the group right here, and you're not playing all the way at the back, you're playing it at 59 and change right now. Okay, you could play it up to 6,200 yards on the current plan, and we're removing the first hole, removing the second hole, and giving you much better practice facilities. One of the things, 2 things really I want you to get also a sense of, you know, on this side. You know, one of which is that the style that the golf course was built in. And when I say that specifically is that there is an inordinate amount of mounding here, right? One of the worst things that you could do is to take a small piece of property and to create a lot of mounding with it. Now, that's not saying that you wouldn't create a berm and landscape it and hide it on the perimeter of things. But for example, when you look at this right here, the prime example, so left of the bunkers here, right? So things got perched up right there. Well, what happens is that you're hitting on the back side of that, and where does the ball go? It kicks it right into the long grass, right? So for a tighter piece of property, what you really want to try and do is to create more of a concave, you know, surface to it, so the ball would actually hit and maybe kick back into play more. For one, it's going to be safer from hitting balls out in the roadways and other golf holes, but it also becomes infinitely more playable that way and a lot more enjoyable. Okay, and it's not just in the fairways, but it's actually even more pronounced around the greens complexes here, right? So if you were to drive, like when we do drive up towards you know, 18 right now, look at a couple of the greens complexes. Right, so you have pretty much everything is mounded, right? So I mentioned that you get behind some of the big razorback mounding and you end up with blind shots and things like that. But again, it's fighting the land, right? So we talk about landscape identity. This style right now is fighting the land. Okay, this is not maximizing this piece of land in any stretch of the imagination. So again, when we talk about celebrating landscape identity, you know, this is one place where it would definitely be dramatic and to do that. Now, one of the other things too is that if you'll notice that there's more water shown in the bottom of the creek here. And one of the reasons for that is that we've been continuously looking at freshwater sources to capture, to use for irrigation. Right now we're actually studying. So Harold's Lake or Harold's Pond down over here, there's a flow meter on the back of it. So what's happening is that between now and the end of spring is that we're measuring how much water goes over that. And there's a good chance that the permit agencies will actually let us capture everything that is getting lost into the bay right now. So what would happen is that there would be a little holding pond. You wouldn't actually see the bottom of it because it would be excavated out. And so water would actually back up over here to a degree. So creating another element to it. Other things, you know, that you notice, you know, there were some questions about sort of the tiered effect. I think there was one gentleman, you know, I know he's got a keen eye of sight lines. You know, so when you're standing here, you notice that you have downhill shot, but you can't see the water. All right, those are the types of things that you eliminate. You always make sure that you have good views, you know, of your key features, right? Now, if you look at if you flip back and then you look at the plan, if you will, you can see where it says 18 East. You can sort of orient it, all right, the way that we're standing. So to give you an idea of where new number 1 East would be, all right, it would be just over, basically just short of that bunker, right? You see where the green box is? That's an irrigation control box. So 1 green would be sitting over and sort of in that space right there, okay? So when you think about how that hole gets reversed, okay? So your tee shot would be over this, to the left of this large clump of live oak trees, and then you'd be playing over to the green location there. So that would be one. You would come across, go through your route, and then come here, and then this would be the 18th hole then.
As you can see, the tours answered many of the questions raised from the months leading to this point and why the renovation committee made some of its decisions. There will be more discussion and more information shared, such as how we're going to pay for the renovation, and that's all at our town hall meeting in the clubhouse on Monday, November the 19th at 5:30 p.m. And remember, all golf members will vote on the renovation, and that vote will not happen until April at the earliest. And don't forget, Monday, November the 19th, for the town hall meeting to review this important project.